5, 6, 7. It's a message. Oh, it's a message. Oh, it's a message. Oh, it's a message. Oh,
we invite you to join us as we have a therapeutic conversation for queer women of color when they find that the life script is not enough.
It's going to be every other week. We're going to bring our real, authentic take on life, liberty, and finding happiness. It's a message, but it's okay.
And if you vibe, we tribe.
Oh, it's a message. Oh, it's a message. Oh, it's a message. Oh, it's a message. Oh.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in again. We are so thankful for your continued support. If you are watching us on YouTube, today is a tired day, so forgive the look, but enjoy the show. This episode is titled "What's Your Milk and Honey?"
Yes, I'm really excited about this one.
Me too.
All right, so before we get into this, you know how we do. We like to chop it up. So, Jess, what's been going on with you other than not sleeping?
That's really the mess, sis. I have not been sleeping well. And I feel like I've been seeing this as a trend on social media. A lot of people were like, my sleep patterns off, which is kind of understandable because people have been thrown into a mix of not working or working from home, and that can kind of really mess up your schedule. But for me, it's like I've been doing more things. So I've been working, as I told you before, I'm an essential. But so I've been working, but I've also been trying to do more with the podcast. We've been trying to like do more as far as our like reach and like all of these meetings we're having. I'm
Mm-hmm.
also writing a story. I'm also trying to keep in communication with more people than I have been
Your
before.
hoes.
Not I don't have hoes. I have friends, but
Okay. Same
I'm just
difference.
saying, like, I feel like I said before, people have more time, and so that's creating more time for me to talk to them, but I'm also like busy, and I'm trying to like write a story, and I'm trying to like make sure the podcast is good, and I'm trying to like make sure I'm not neglecting anyone, and like it's just a lot. And so I have not been sleeping well. That's not true. But last night I'm just exhausted cuz like what happened was, okay, so really what had happened was
Mm-hmm.
I was
Mm-hmm.
I've been on my ladies time, my little cycle or whatnot. And that's really thrown a little kink in the thing. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know what I'm trying to say. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. It was
Like
like a little
fatigue.
hiccup. It was, yeah, it's just been trying to, my body is just like, ooh, this is a lot on top of everything else. And I'm like, you're right. So yeah, that's really what's been going on. I've just been trying to like really get myself together because these are the things that I want to do. I want to write stories. I want to be talking to friends. I want to be working on the podcast, but just relearning or recalibrating my schedule is kind of the mess that's been going on. But it's exciting too. I'm not going to just leave it as like all this horribleness, but it's exciting too, of course. But yeah, I just got to figure out how to balance it. What
It
about
doesn't sound horrible at all. It's like,
you?
so much to do, so little time. And
Kinda, yeah.
which
What
I
about
think
you?
is, what about me?
Yeah.
I
You mess.
I think I'm just, I think it's been a really good week for me. I've been very productive, like
Yeah.
in a way that I can acknowledge. It's been a challenge to do this podcast.
Mhm.
I too have a writing assignment. um,
Yes.
and just kind of like just trying to figure out how to do all of that. I don't know, I find myself, excited to kind of wake up and know that I have something to work on that I care about and not just like a whole
Right.
bunch of shit I have to do. But it
Right.
is tough because I haven't been sleeping as
Mhm.
much,
Mhm.
but I don't think it's really like draining me.
Okay.
Like I find myself staying up a lot later, just kind of working on stuff and then just waking
Yeah.
up earlier in the morning because I want to get back to it.
That's
And I've
dope.
never been that type of person, so I don't know really what's going on with me. It could also be the coffee, it could also be soda. I don't know. Uh, and it could be like my days just running into each other because they tend to do that.
That's funny.
But overall, like it's been kind of chill. I think I've been trying to keep myself busy. Um, I've been trying to stay away from like the news, and I've just really just kind of been focused on things that I want to do.
Yeah.
And I think this topic has really helped with that.
That's dope. And that topic,
So,
if you'll remember, what's your milk and honey?
right. So I'm just gonna like just get straight into it, like how we came
Okay.
up with all this. So,
Right, right.
milk and honey. I don't know why every time like I say milk and honey, like I hear
Uh-huh.
Bernie Mac's voice saying, "I want some milk and cookies." You remember that, bro?
That was
Like
my
consistently.
favorite. I want some milk and cookies.
Um, so anyway, during one of our conversations, somehow I don't know how Jess and I got on this topic,
Mm,
but somehow we started talking about like the Bible and heaven and milk and honey. So okay, so you know how like somewhere in the Bible it says something about like when we die, we go to heaven and we spend our days indulging in copious amounts of milk and honey and maybe like some bread or something. So today's episode is kind of brought to you by like a random rant that came about as a result of like the whole
Right,
idea of milk and honey in heaven. That Irina went
right.
on about how heaven is whack for only serving milk and honey and having me spending my days singing out my voice off key. Because it also says something about like we have to like sing and praise God for all eternity somewhere in there.
Right.
Um, and I'm really not a credible reference at all. But I believe somebody said something like that, and I believed it. So you know how that goes. So pretty much I'm saying it's whack if that's all they, them, he, she, shim, or whatever it got to offer.
Hmm.
So I, Rena, said that I am aiming for purgatory
Wow.
because I don't want to go to hell, but heaven ain't quite it either.
Hmm.
So that's when our resident scholar and common sense maker Jess was able to penetrate my diatribe and softly inquire, you know that probably isn't going to be actual milk and honey, right? And then she added, it's probably your equivalent of milk and honey. So like my mind was blown at that point.
Hmm.
And then she put the final nail in the coffin and she asked me like, what is my milk and honey? And I did not have an immediate answer. And then, of course, in true Jess fashion, she didn't actually wait for my answer. She just went on and rattled off hers. Uh, because Jess is always ready.
Stay ready. You don't got to get
Always
ready.
ready. Exactly, exactly. But it got me to thinking, what is my milk and honey? So, like, while she's talking, I literally just left our conversation and curled up on the couch and
Oh,
thought about
wait.
it like really hard. And I shocked myself with what I came up with. And it was
Mm.
eye opening and motivational. And Gus darn, I said, we need to talk about this on our next episode. So here we are. So, long story short, episode 11 is all about pondering, defining, envisioning, and hopefully manifesting our definition of milk and honey, discussing the impact of what doing the aforementioned has had on our lives, and break down how we intend on coping with our personal findings on the matter. I'm doing like a lot of like hand jazz, whatever. So yeah, that's it.
That's
So Jess,
it.
I want you to let everybody know what you define milk and honey as, and what's your personal milk and honey.
Okay. So, okay, I'm just going to say the first time that I ever heard this term was obviously in church, like Rena was saying. It's actually mentioned in the Bible several times, but one of the scriptures that I remember is in Leviticus, that's chapter 20, verse 24. And it says, "But I have said unto you, ye shall inherit the land, and I will give it unto you to possess it, a land that floweth with milk and honey. I am the Lord your God, which have separated you from other people." So the phrase "flowing with milk and honey" or "floweth with milk and honey" is understood to be hyperbolically descriptive of the land's riches, hence its current use to express the abundance of pure means of enjoyment, right? So with that being
Yeah.
said, what is my pure means of enjoyment? Hey, preach, preacher. Hey, glory. Okay, I'm just kidding. But no, really my milk and honey looks like 40 acres of land developed off the grid with an orchard, a large garden, and an assortment of animals, a well, of course, a small corner store, and all of my friends and family living together, and not necessarily in the same house, but just on the same plot of land where it's very easy to get to. We're very, very accessible, but then I can go hide away in my little cottage or little, actually, it would probably be a Victorian style home because that's what I love. Um, and they can go to their various homes on the land. Um, it looks like
A
what?
plantation.
No, everybody has their own equally big or small home, whatever they want, and they're not slaves, Rena. Don't come in here trying to ruin my 40 acres, my milk and honey. Listen, anyway, it looks like, so my 40 acres looks, or my 40 acres, my milk and honey looks like hanging out under the stars, like at a fire pit, because there'll obviously be a fire pit, while sipping sweet tea for me since I don't drink, and whatever they drinking, because they do drink. It's telling jokes until tears stream down your face and you can barely breathe. It's warm hugs and I love yous from the people who I do love and who love me back. It's knowing that my folks can know that they can always rely on me and count on me to always be there for them. So that's what heaven, bliss, milk and honey, that's what a promise of happiness, of pure enjoyment looks like. It means to me. So what
Wow.
about you?
That just sounds so nice and like selfless, you know. Um,
But it's not
so
though. That's the funny thing. I mean, it is selfless in a sense, but it's very selfish because I feel like when I'm with my people and I can keep eyes on them and I can rest assured that I know they're safe, I can get to them safely, then I feel safe. I feel comfortable. So it is selfless in a sense, but it's also very much so about me. It very much so makes me comfortable to be able to see the people that I love and to kind of keep an eye out and be like, okay, you good? All right, cool. And now I can go be comfortable and live my life. You know what I mean?
okay, yeah, yeah. So it's
So
kind of like just knowing you don't have to worry about them because you can see them, like across the yard, in the field, and
yeah,
everything
yeah.
where they live.
Mm. I can come get
Hmm.
them.
From
I
your
can come
Victorian house
from my
on your 40
Victorian house.
acres
Exactly.
with
We're
your
all
garden that they're manning.
we're all manning
No, I'm
it.
just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay, I'm just
Don't
kidding. I'm just
come for my commune. Listen, don't come for my
see,
don't come
see,
for
the
my
truth
commune.
comes out. The
Listen,
truth comes
commune
out.
just means community. See, that's all it means.
That's what every cult leader says.
It'll be a good cult, I promise. You can leave anytime.
Sure. After you just have a sip of this juice.
I'm fine. Forget you, man.
Okay. 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 For me, okay, okay. So
Okay.
after Jess kind of like put a little spin on my perception of milk and honey, you know, uh, I now kind of look at it as like a thing or things, feelings that makes it all worth it. That makes being alive, living, feeling, breathing, the pain, loss, grief, the entire experience of existing worth it. So it's heaven, it's utopia, it's desire, and it's ultimately just a product of your good work. Um, and I don't necessarily think that like heaven is just or milk and honey is just for when you go to heaven or when you die. Um, I'm not even sure if we really die for real, for real. Like, I think we are energy. And I don't know where energy goes, but I know it doesn't die. It like changes or it does something, but it doesn't really die. So, on to my personal definition of milk and honey. It's a lot more low key than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I really tried to focus and narrow in on what would like bring bliss for me,
Yeah.
and I just envisioned like this like 3 bedroom like cabin near a lake because I want to be near water.
Dope.
Um, and I kind of want like high ceilings because I like the rafters, the whole look of that,
Okay. Okay.
And I want it to be constructed out of a redwood. Like it's very specific in that regard.
Mhm.
I want like a redwood. I don't want like, I don't know, like some like dry ass light pine or gray. Anyway, moving on. Uh, I want tons of natural light because
Mhm.
really don't like lights like that. I
Yeah.
don't like fluorescent lighting. That's
Mhm.
why I don't like working in office settings because the lighting sucks.
Yeah.
Um, and I want a wooden deck And I want a good amount of land. I don't have a specific number, like 40 acres.
Listen.
I just want land, greenery, and I want enough money to not have to worry and to have
Hell
my
yeah.
needs met. And I want to be able to create as I see fit. I want to be able
Mhm.
to have access to people, but not be on top of each other. I
Mhm.
want health. I want to be strong and flexible. I want to be able to explore when I want, to sit at home when I want, and that's completely different from what I thought it would be, because I've
Yeah.
kind of had this idea in my head of like what like making it looks like, or what like heaven would be like, or like the perfect life would be like, so I thought that I would like envision fame, fortune, like I want fortune.
Of
I don't know
course.
about the fame part. I think what I want is acknowledgement. I want
Mhm.
respect. I don't really know if that's synonymous with fame.
Okay.
Um, because people could be famous for a whole bunch of dumb shit, so just because you're famous doesn't necessarily mean people respect you,
Very
um,
true.
as we've seen with our current president. Anyway,
Mm. Mhm.
so I thought I would want the fancy car and like the $10 million home off the edge of a cliff in Calabasas, and I thought I would want like I don't know the cool job and the notoriety and award shows and the stage, But I think I just really want to be left alone and happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want the money and I want the body. I don't really need anyone to see me like that.
Mhm.
Like as long as I have it, I think that's what's important. I feel good, like in my body. And when I say the body, I don't necessarily mean a six pack, even though it would be nice, but whatever.
Right.
So,
Right.
so that's literally the opposite of what I was working towards and stressing myself over.
Which is
What I
so
really want.
funny. Which is so
Yeah.
funny because when you get down to it, like, my my milk and honey, you were saying like, oh, that's so selfless, but like in the end, when I was my happiest, when I am my happiest, I am sitting with my family, I'm sitting with my friends, we're telling jokes, we kikiing, we're sitting under the stars, we're making memories, and that's bliss for me, and that's heaven for me. And like you were saying, like, I don't know what happens after we leave here. And my goal and my desire is to create heaven here for myself, and I feel like that's possible. I feel like we've given heaven a day after we're done here, because like you were saying, sometimes it's like, well, what can I do here to do this? Or you want something that seems so far off, like $10 million or this or that, and it's like, okay, that may create your happiness. If that's going to create your happiness, more power to you.
I want more than $10 million. That was just a $10 million house. That was just a little house.
Oh, pardon me. Oh, excuse
I want
me.
more
Whoa. Well,
than 10
damn.
million.
Oh, okay. Well, damn. But I'm just saying, when you get down to the basics of it, where does your soul find peace? And I think that is like the definition of milk and honey. Where can you find peace? Where can you find joy? Where can you find happiness? Because when I think of heaven, that's what I think of. I don't think of, I don't know. I've had to come to terms with it not looking like
What
heaven
we've been
in the
taught.
Bible. Yeah, what we've been taught, and recognizing that heaven is a feeling. Heaven is like a goal. Heaven is the dream. You know what I'm saying? And like, so yeah, it's very interesting
Right.
what we actually sit down and think about, what that
Right.
what that actually is. So like, what's the impact? Or I guess I don't know. Should I say my impact, or you want to say your impact?
I think I could say my impact.
Okay, yeah.
I'll just go into it, because
Yeah.
like because it kind of piggybacks off of what you just said about like, heaven being, you know, I was raised like not in the church. I went to church as I was
Mhm.
growing up. How about that?
Okay. How
and
about that?
and you go to, Sunday school and all of that, and they tell you that like heaven is something that happens like
Mm,
after life.
right.
Um, so and it's something that like based on what you did now, then you go to heaven, and they almost make it seem like it's blasphemous or that you're evil if you even consider trying to create heaven on earth. They make it seem like heaven on earth is for the heathens,
Mhm.
and that the real heaven, like the good heaven, is the one that's in the sky that I probably won't gain entry to. So, like I said before, I had never really thought about milk and honey like that beyond what I
Mhm.
heard was in the Bible because
Mhm.
honestly, I haven't read it. I haven't read the Bible. I tried. I read a little
Mhm.
bit of Genesis. It was wild. Um, like kind of with like my heathen's eye view of it.
Yeah.
It's like it's a really good read, but it's really long and the pages are really thin. And I'm gonna get through it. I'm gonna get through it.
Mhm.
Anyway, so anywho, somebody told somebody who then told me that when we die, we go to heaven and we sing to God in the sky and have milk and honey, which I obviously took ultra literally,
Right.
and up to this point, I haven't really thought about it. Like I didn't really, up to this point, I really had a jaded view of heaven. Like I said, I didn't think I would gain entry. So therefore, I didn't really want to have much to do with it. I just didn't really think about it. I never really thought about heaven beyond what I was told. I just took that
Yeah.
at face value. Um, but I thought about hell,
Mhm.
enough to form my own personal definition. And I knew that based on my own personal definition,
Mhm.
I felt strongly, and I still do, that I do not deserve to go to hell. So,
Right.
but I never thought about heaven enough to form my own definition of it.
Okay.
Um, and because I never saw it as a place worth the devotion to get to.
Mhm.
Especially when I found out about the good old fence straddle that is purgatory. And I don't even know if purgatory is really part of the doctrine of what I was taught in church. I
Right.
think that's something I just like stumbled upon on Google or something. And I was like, that sounds like that could work.
That's hilarious.
Um, because
Like, I'll
I
go
really
there. That sounds fine.
pretty much that's it. I was like, I'll just settle for that. Like, I'll just take heaven at face value because it really doesn't matter. My focus just don't go to hell because I don't want to go there. That don't sound
Right.
pleasant. And just
Right.
make it purgatory and just coast, right? So, so
Wow.
the impact of that view on my life, I think, and not thinking about milk and honey or heaven, like giving it a really good, sincere thought about like my desires. I mean, I think it's pretty much been a defense mechanism.
Right.
Um, I didn't think I would ever, be worthy of getting there,
Mhm.
according to what I taught. So I was like, screw it. Your little heaven ain't all that. All you got is stale bread. I don't really like honey and I can't stand milk, you know? So, it just was like, I don't even want that anyway.
Right.
You keep that. That's whack. Like all y'all out there just doing all this, sacrificing all that to go where? To
Right.
like to eat honey, bread. Like I could live without that. So I just didn't aspire to it. But after I was challenged, just from like our conversation, to really think about it, and the
Mhm.
challenge was just in seeing like how quickly you came up with an answer and just kind of how you
Yeah.
up just talking about it. I think I realized I was afraid to think about it because I believed I wouldn't get it.
Yeah. Mm.
And I'm a fence straddler. So, my nickname when I was working was Switzerland because, I just don't sway either way.
Oh,
I,
wow.
I don't really have an opinion on nothing. I'm just right there in the middle. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to any extreme, and that just kind of led me to realize, like, holy shit, I'm in purgatory right now.
Wow. You've
Like,
created purgatory for yourself.
right. Like nothing is amazing, nothing is horrible. And so in a way I've kind of manifested that. So that's been the impact of this, just this whole discussion, just seeing where I'm at based off of my desires or my lack of considering my desires and not knowing my desires and where that has led me into life right now.
Wow. That's amazing though to actually have that conversation with yourself to say I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I could achieve it. That's incredible because that is something I feel like a lot of us deal with and a lot of us struggle with is thinking I know even for myself now, I do have my heaven, but there are other things that I want to achieve, but I have in the past dulled them down because I felt like
Right.
maybe they weren't achievable. I felt like, okay, maybe I won't move to LA because I should just go over here and do X, Y, and Z. But it's like, why? You haven't even tried. You haven't even
Right.
tried. So
Right.
that's really incredible that, to have that realization and to be able to like put it to words and put it to understanding for yourself. Like, I think that's incredible.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So, the impact for me, knowing what I want for my milk and honey, knowing what would serve as heaven for me is that I work my tail off, or I have worked my tail off to be there for my family. Um, Everything I do now is for the goal of getting some land and creating this heaven on earth. Because, like you were saying, I don't know if heaven is after this. I don't know if I'm going to make it in, but I do know that that would create a peace and a happiness that would last right now. And maybe even until the next space of my energy. I have no idea. Um, I will say, though, in that I have in the past allowed it to take over my life. And I lived only really to be of service to my family and to my friends. And that was not healthy. I did things to the detriment of my own mental and physical health. And um, I had like a health scare a couple years ago that put a lot into perspective for me. And after that, I really changed my attitude towards myself and those that I love. And I realized that if I die, I'm no good to the family and I can't create the heaven on earth here because I won't be here. So I've decided to take better care of myself, and in turn, I'll be able to take better care of those I love. So I feel like, in wanting the dream so bad, I neglected myself, and I neglected the understanding that if I'm not healthy, then none of this is really achievable. You know what I'm saying? And so, my milk and honey doesn't have to come at a sacrifice to myself. And that's kind of a thing for the church too. Sacrifice is a very big proponent of what they teach in the church, and I don't know. I guess I took that shit hella literal because I have done so many things, and looking back at it now that I've kind of like had some step away time. Looking back at it, I just always wanted, I have siblings, and always wanted my siblings to know, like, you can always call on me. I want all my nieces and nephews to know, you can always call on me. I wanted all my friends to know, you can always call on me. And that became, you can always call on me when things go wrong. And that became very draining, and that became very toxic and very unhealthy for my psyche, even, to just feel like, okay, well, I don't have it to give emotionally, even. I don't have it to give. I'm at the bottom base of my everything, but I'm still trying to give it because I want this heaven, and I want this bliss, and I want this enjoyment. And so I had to take a step back and realize that heaven doesn't have to sacrifice. I don't have to sacrifice my soul for heaven, even the heaven on earth.
That is, it's just, I'm just like processing everything you just said because
Uh,
like you're talking about how you work so hard for your milk and honey, which you're equating to heaven, right?
mm-hmm.
Okay. So I just keep thinking in my head, I'm like, you're working so hard. It shouldn't be that hard. Like I thought that was like the perk of heaven. Like yeah, you work hard to get to it, but if
Right.
you're I'm still trying to process it cuz I'm like, okay, so it sounds like then like you had to modify like heaven for you. Like you had to realize, okay, it's not just, you know, people being able to lean on you. It's not just okay trying to get land, but there's more to it. There's like that feeling. There's an element of yourself in it. It's almost like you weren't even in your milk and honey, like the way you talk about it.
I
Like
mean,
you, it was almost like it sounds well, like you were kind of creating it for everybody else, and then having everybody else kind of slurp off of the milk and honey that flows through your 40 acres.
ew,
Uh,
slurp.
oh my gosh, I do this every
That's you
episode.
do. Ew, gross.
I don't
Ew, Rena.
drink. Okay, drink.
Okay, yes.
Fine, drink.
Thank you.
Oh, then, like, just you kind of observing that and seeing that, then that would bring you joy.
Well, yeah, to some degree. I mean, I feel like I don't feel like my heaven definition changed. I feel like what changed was my understanding of how to get there. And recognizing that it doesn't have to solely be me creating the heaven. I can allow others in. I can say no and still create heaven. I can have boundaries and still create heaven. I can have an understanding of what I need and still create heaven for myself. Like, you know what I mean? So it wasn't necessarily that my definition of heaven changed. It was more so just that my understanding of how to get there has evolved and changed. And my understanding that if I get there and I'm depleted and weak and tired and stressed and old and faded, that that's not going to be heaven.
So is heaven really like the outcome or is it the process?
Honestly, I feel like it's the outcome. If I'm honest, because
Still the outcome?
yeah, it's still the outcome for me because I'm not there. I mean, this process of getting there is a journey and it's one that I'm learning and there are some good times and some happy moments, but if I could just be on my land right now with my family right now, writing my novel right now with my nieces and nephews running in the yard playing and I hear their laughter, that would be heaven right now. Like the journey is fine, but that's certainly not heaven for me.
So now I get why people probably say then that heaven is what happens, like comes when you die,
Yeah.
because it's the end of the journey.
Yes.
So life is the journey to heaven.
Life is a journey to heaven. Yeah.
And you could create heaven or you could create purgatory, like I
Or you
did,
create
or you can
hell.
create hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bitch. And it
I mean,
changes. I feel like it changes. Maybe for me, it changes. Or maybe as you get to know yourself, what you once
yeah.
thought was heaven changes. Maybe we know what heaven is like from jump, but then we jump into these meat suits called bodies.
Yeah.
um I know, that's just where I am with it. Just
Okay.
deal with it.
I'm dealing with it. Okay. Me. Hmm.
um, like we knew at one point, and then like the whole point is like we forget, and then we go through this journey to remember. So that's just interesting.
It's very interesting. I mean, it is. I'm not gonna say that the journey isn't heaven because I guess maybe it's like the stairway to heaven. You're not quite there. You're journeying a. Hey, you better sing it. Hey,
Step
hey.
by step. You know
Wait,
the rest of
I
the
thought
words?
we was going to two different songs.
What
What
song were
song
you
you
going
said?
to? What was you going to? Wait a minute.
I thought you said going up and yonder. Do you know that
No,
song? Okay, just
no.
kidding.
Is that a church song?
It's yep. Hmm. It's a good old gospel
I was
tune.
I was doing the OJs. Like,
Oh, got it.
I don't know what you was doing. I mean,
Gospel music.
you know what you was doing.
Exactly. Okay, so but like, okay, how do we address this? How do we address what we've now found out about our heaven? How do we address, what it takes to get there? How do we deal with that? How do we cope with things?
But with this, what do we do with this knowledge? I think just taking the time to think about it finally, like seriously, for the first time in my life,
Mm,
it just kind of hit me. Um,
yeah.
realize that what I can take away from this is like just this knowledge that I haven't really been moving towards what I wanted. Um,
Yeah.
I've always been screaming, I feel like I have no direction. I feel like I have no goal. I feel like I have no trajectory, and that I'm just kind of like stuck, stationary.
Yeah.
Um, but I think now that I've given it some thought, I've realized that I don't know, something just kind of came over me, like a feeling just kind of opened up, and I was able to put things in perspective and like accept things and just kind of take things, as it is, and realize, I didn't know what I wanted because I didn't really want to think about it, think
Yeah.
authentically about what I wanted. I thought so much about what I didn't want, and I thought about what I would settle for, but I
Yeah.
never really give um, any really any really meaningful thought to what I wanted. And I
Yeah.
realized that, I've been moving in a way towards things that I didn't want just based off of what I saw others have. So
Yeah.
I was envious, not ambitious,
Mm,
you know.
mhm.
Um, and I just realized, I was just gonna accept any old heaven that they gave me or any old purgatory and
Yeah.
just try to fight off hell, but that's not
Damn.
really the point. I'm realizing now that especially since I've come into the realization that I've created purgatory for myself,
Yeah.
that heaven is something that I have to create.
Mhm.
It's something that I have to think about and move towards. It's something that I have to actually accept that I want.
Right.
and say, okay, I want this.
Yeah.
So what do I do to get there?
Right.
And kind of tune out all the stuff like around me that's saying, oh, you shouldn't do that, or that's not how you should do it, or you should want this,
Mhm.
instead of that. Because I think growing up, you see things, you music videos, movies, maybe your aunt, uncle, they, have a Cadillac or something. You're like, yeah, that's what I want. Like,
Right.
that's what I see successful people have according to society. I
Mhm.
want that. Um, so yeah, heaven I create. Purgatory is something that I've created.
Mhm.
I created a little mini hell for myself, a little bit ago, and I was able to crawl out of that. So I also know that's something that you can create. So knowing that all of these things are kind of in the now,
Yeah.
you know, it just made me realize, okay, so I've created purgatory, I've created hell, so I need to create heaven.
Yeah.
That's the last one. I
That's the
have to
only thing
create heaven.
left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the only thing left to do is
Yeah.
just create heaven. I've done everything else, and milk and honey probably won't be there. I mean, maybe like honey and almond milk because I really don't like cow's milk, but it won't be like the main feature. It'll be like just some shit I have in my
Some
cabin.
sides.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
All right.
I
So
fuck with it.
so what about you? How do you anticipate coping with this? What are you gonna do with all of this?
So for me, I cope with it um by recognizing that I have to achieve milk and honey by being honest with myself about
That
what I
part.
can and cannot realistically do. I have a talk with myself gently yet firmly about breaking old habits and sticking to my guns on how I want to live my life. So, for instance, I have wanted to move back home because I know that me moving home can help members of my family do better. But I also recognize that it will kill my spirit. And my spirit has finally grown some wings and wants to fly. And if I do that and go home and sacrifice myself in this way, I may never recover. So now I make strides to be there in more healthy ways. I'm trying to be there by calling more or giving suggestions on how, you can better yourself with through your own actions or something like that, so that in the end I can also realize my dreams. I cope by saying that I don't have to self-sacrifice in order for me to get to heaven or for everyone else to get to what I assume is heaven. And also recognizing that my heaven doesn't have to be your heaven and it doesn't have
Mm,
to look like heaven for anybody else. It just
right.
has to be my heaven. And so, right, just recognizing that self-sacrifice is not gonna get me to heaven, to my
Right.
heaven. And so that's how I cope by just like really sitting in old habits and feeling uncomfortable by not doing them anymore, like looking at how I have been treating other people, how I've been treating myself, and recognizing like that doesn't serve me anymore. That doesn't serve me anymore. That's uncomfortable. I don't like it. And even though that is something that I'm known and that I'm used to, that's not gonna get me to heaven. And I need to revamp and revise and always be okay with revamping and revising on the journey to get to what I consider my milk and honey or my heaven. So that's really kind of how I address it.
I think you just brought up so many good points, especially when you said that heaven doesn't have to look like anybody else's, and yours
Right.
doesn't have to look like anybody else's. And
Mhm.
I just started thinking, I just started going off on a tangent. I'm like,
Yeah.
what if, like, because I feel like heaven is yours, heaven is your personal thing. And I think
Mhm.
the way it's been taught to me is that, we're all gonna go to heaven like together, and it's gonna be
Mhm.
this one place.
Right.
And you're gonna see all your loved ones and all of that who have gone on, which is cool and all that.
Mhm.
Um, Probably would be weird now if heaven is in the present and I'm alive and they're not. That's different. Well, I mean, but then again, there's a spirituality component where there's a lot of people who have altars and feel like they're
Mhm.
surrounded by
Their
their loved
ancestors.
ones and their ancestors. So
Yep.
huh, like I just since I feel like heaven is a really individual experience, and I don't or thought or thing. I don't.
Mm.
I feel like that's not really taught.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that then we would all try to go after like this standard heaven instead of our own unique individual heaven because we're all unique and we're all individuals.
Right.
So, your heaven, like you said, probably is not your family's heaven, but it may be heaven for them to come and experience your heaven with you.
Hmm.
And maybe they don't want 40 acres, but to have that time around the fire pit, where you guys are chopping up, laughing till, your stomach hurts and all of that. And then they can go
Yeah.
off to their heaven. So maybe could it just be us just all like standing in our truth and being honest about what our heaven is, and then also allowing other people to have their heaven, and not
Yep.
necessarily trying to like kidnap them and like say, no, you will be my heaven. You know?
Right.
Like, so in a way, isn't that shit like peace on earth?
It is. I mean, I feel
It's
like
that shit.
you said what?
I said, dang, we ain't never gonna get there.
I mean, I don't know, but I think once we start having the recognition and the understanding that you can create your own heaven, because I feel like the way it's set up and the way that it's worded, it kind of gives you the okay to just settle for whatever you're given here on
Right.
earth, because eventually you're going to have heaven somewhere
Oh,
else. But I think if you go ahead and recognize, like, I can do the best I can now to create what would be peace for me here, what would be joy for me here, what would be love, what would be laughter, what would be light for me here. We
and
could
that's
get to a peace on earth type of space because people would be peaceful in their own right. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like, and I'm not like shooting down religion at all,
Yeah.
or Christianity at all, but I feel like in my experience growing up, I was actively discouraged from considering heaven on earth.
Mhm. Mhm.
That it's like if you decide to have heaven on earth, then you're pretty much just saying that you're choosing heaven on earth over like heaven with the Lord.
Right. Right.
And so I'm still trying to figure out. I guess I didn't realize that that is a piece that I learned that I kind of really clung to, like
Mhm.
that kind of probably went deep.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about sacrifice, there is that element of sacrifice. It's like, but I've always felt like, okay, I have to sacrifice heaven on earth so that I can have heaven
Right.
up there. But all they're doing is serving milk and honey. So
And that didn't sound good to you.
right. Like, so it is, I think it's amazing that we're having this conversation now and kind of so I can realize that milk and honey isn't like literally what they're talking about.
Right.
And that it's more like a feeling and it's more personal. It's not like this generic thing
Mhm.
that's for everybody.
Right. Right. Like I take the Bible, and like I said, I grew up, really religious, but I
Yeah.
do, like, I have read the Bible because it was mandated. No, I'm just kidding. But
Good for you.
no,
Not about the
sadly.
mandated
No, I'm just
part.
kidding.
I mean, you know shit now.
I do know, but I do take it. There were some really great stories. There's some really great life lessons, and I take it more like that. The Bible's more like an allegory, and that's why I can get to the space where I say, okay, maybe it's not literal. Maybe these are things where you can see how to. It's like a guide. You know what I mean? It's like it serves as a guide. It doesn't have to be every single thing doesn't fit you. If this fits you and this is the path you're on, maybe look to this for a guide or something like that. So that's kind of how I take it now. And
I feel
use
like a
towards,
forward or something
huh?
would have been helpful. Like a forward, you know, would have been helpful with the
Like,
Bible.
this is an
Like,
allegory.
right, like, hey, like these are based on true events, not necessarily, you know, accurate, but maybe enhanced for theatrical purposes or something.
So you want it to be like a movie where
Well,
they give you
I
that.
mean, it is. I mean, I don't know about a movie, but just kind of like saying, like, hey, like, we're using some really colorful language here that may not actually be literal. Like, don't take this at face value. Think,
That's
God damn it.
hilarious. Don't take this I don't, I don't think it would have served the purpose of control if they had done it that way. But I
Ooh,
do, right. That's another tea for another day. But I do think that there was some amazing stories in there, and I do think recognizing that we can create heaven on earth is something that I wish more people would understand, because then they would go after, like you said, you thought your heaven on earth would be the millions and the this and the that and the other, and that's not even what it is for you. And I think if we had more people actually chasing after what makes them happy and not what
Mhm.
makes them um
Look happy.
look happy, exactly, then we would have more peace on earth. We would have more people who are, in tune with themselves. We would have more people who are happy or joyful or just, able to vibrate higher. And that's the thing that
Right.
I've been learning more about, just the vibrations of, like, of even sadness or anger or fear, or any of those are very low vibrations. And so if you can find your place that brings you peace, find your place that brings you happiness, joy, laughter, all these things, those are higher vibrations. And then you're sick a lot less, you're sad a lot less. You know what I'm saying? Because you're vibrating at a different frequency, in a different space. So I don't know.
It's it's interesting because I go to the spirituality group that's called Silhouette. It's in Baltimore.
Mhm.
And you can look it up on Meetup. It's there. And we had like a Zoom meeting, kind
Mhm.
of talking about like the virus, just doing a check in and everything.
Yeah.
And you know, the one of the coaches, because it's the life coaches in the group,
Yeah.
she mentioned that um, a virus is supposed to be like a detox, right?
Mhm.
Like in one of her books, I think it's what is it? Living, I think it's Living Life on. So I don't know. Louise Hay is the author. I can't give you no details. Anyway, just rock with me for a minute.
Okay.
So she's like, in that book, the concept is that a virus is supposed to be a detox. So, COVID-19 is a virus. And then she kind of looked up in that book, what like the metaphysical or spiritual meaning of a respiratory infection or respiratory issues, what that could be. And in the book, it says it's a fear of taking life in fully.
Mm.
So, when you're talking about like if people would just be allowed to, admit to themselves, think to themselves about what they really want,
Yeah.
and take life, it makes me think of taking in life fully and how we have a lot of pressures in society to do certain things and we aspire to things that we don't really want
Yeah.
and then put what we really want on the back burner for
Mhm.
so many reasons. There's a lot of surgeons out there who want to be police officers and doctors or just work construction. There's a lot of people who are cashiers or working in retail, customer service jobs, who want to be lawyers or who want to be in the military. Just like it seems like everybody is not doing what they want to do,
Right.
and then we have this virus comes up that
Mhm.
attacks and all of this could be hogwash. You could take it for what it is because
Yeah.
you either take it and it resonates with you or it doesn't,
Right.
and that's fine. But it hit me, and then I was just like, okay, a respiratory infection, the meaning is that you're afraid to like breathe deeply, you're
Yeah.
afraid, or it's not possible for you to breathe deeply. To It's a fear of taking life in fully.
Oh, wow.
And I feel like that's it. That's
Yeah.
probably why we are where we are. There's just like a whole bunch of people who, include myself included, just doing things and just out of fear of actually
Mhm.
putting yourself out there and going after what you want.
Right. Right.
So
That's incredible. That's incredible how
that's
sometimes these
just
things
my little
kind of
thing.
align, with
Right.
everybody might be, your spirituality group talked about it. Here we are talking about it. Somebody else is probably having these kind of conversations. And I don't know. I think it's just very interesting when these kind of things just come down from the atmosphere and we're all kind of, seemingly on the same page. Um,
Right.
as far as some kind of thought towards it. But yeah, I guess we'll just do like the recap now. Yeah, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You get on my nerves. Okay. So the recap is Rena's milk and honey is just now being realized because she took it very literally. She thought, there's no way I'm going to go up there and be drinking milk and eating honey.
I
That
don't
sounds
like cow's
horrible.
milk. I really don't
Or
like it.
Right. But after the understanding that it's probably, based on you and probably not very literal, she was able to find her milk and honey and understand that it probably isn't even what she thought it was going to be, and recognizing that that is actually achievable here on earth. And for myself, I had my milk and honey ready to go, but how I got there and how I get there has had to change over time, recognizing that I don't have to self-sacrifice in order to achieve the heaven on earth. And I think that that goes for a lot of people recognizing that you can have heaven on earth, which is Rena's perspective. And then my perspective, if you already know you can have heaven on earth, how do you get there? And is it detrimental to you? And that is no good either. So I think it's been very like eye-opening experience just having to sit and think about this and think through this and understand, okay, I can have heaven and I can have heaven without self sacrifice. So that's going to be the recap. And I guess we're going to go ahead and get into my favorite part of the episode, which is meditation. So we're going to take our breaths, we're going to set our intention, and I hope you join along with us for this portion of the podcast. So take in a deep breath with me. We're going to take a second deep breath. We're going to take one last deep breath. I set my intention for today, understanding that I can have heaven without self-sacrifice, and understanding that if I have to make adjustments, that that's okay. I am still aiming and striving toward heaven here on earth.
And my intention is to really continue to think about what I really want and to not be afraid to take life in fully.
I love that. Now we're going to take another deep breath. We'll take a second deep breath. And we'll take our last deep breath. Alrighty, so your intentions have been set for the day. Go out there and flourish, sis. Today doesn't have to be a mess.
But it's okay if it is.
It sure is, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in again, for watching on YouTube. For those of you who have liked our posts and are telling your friends, we are so grateful. Look forward to us doing more live things on IG. We're going to be out doing more outreach so that we can grow our audience. So look forward to us just being out and about, doing things, trying things, seeing if it works, trying shit.
Well, not out and about, like inside our homes
Right.
and virtually present.
Doing it
We will
safely.
virtually. Yeah, you don't know who's listening to this. I'm
That's
going to be in my house unless it's essential.
okay. We're going to be in our houses reaching out to you good people over the interweb
Virtually.
virtually. Yes.
Interwebs.
Yes. The interwebs.
What is this, 97?
Yes. Always. I'm virtually in 1997.
Ugh.
But thank y'all so much for watching. Okay, look, we can tell you where to find us. We are on Gmail, Facebook, and Twitter at It's a Mess Sis. And on Instagram, it's a Mess Sis podcast. So please reach out to us and let us know your thoughts, your opinions. What's your milk and honey? Tag us in your Instagram story and tell us what your milk and honey is, if you can do that. If it's able to be put in that little small segment.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. But anyway, thank you for listening. We'll talk to you guys later.
All right. Peace.
Peace.
It's a mess.
Hey, that's all I can do.
It's
I
a
can't sing.
mess. It's okay. He's gonna talk over my singing though. Okay, it's ready now.